conversation with somebody, and it goes to the compatibility. I find that sometimes what happens is we don't. So to find out if somebody's compatible with you, you have to be vulnerable, right? You have to let them know what it is your needs are. And sometimes we're not open to allowing people to know what our needs are. So we automatically say, oh, she can't do that because she's not volunteering to do it. She should just know that I need this, and she didn't do it. But if you articulate like, hey, this is what I like my mate to be, or this is what I need in my life, and you can see that she can successfully do that because you've given her an opportunity to prove that she can do that, you'll be amazed. A lot of times we knock people out of the equation and we just never even gave them an opportunity. It was so funny because the scenario was if you have a 7. So I was talking to somebody, a friend of mine, and he was saying, if I have a 7, but she does this, this, and this, but then I have a 9 and she can't do these things these 7s have done, then I'd rather take the 7. And so my question to him was, well, did you get the 9 an opportunity, or did you just look at her as being a 9 and you thought, oh, she can only be because you have this thing about 9s not wanting to do anything, but you were okay with doing it with the 7, like, hey, these are the things that I need, and the 7 stepped in, but you never even came to the 9 and said, well, are you willing to do this? Because you felt like you put her on a pedestal, maybe she won't. You never gave her an opportunity to do it. You understand? Does that make sense? This is a real conversation.
Well, my question is, it sounds like what you're saying is he may be treating the 7s different than a 9 in terms of expectation. But my thing is, you're looking at it from that perspective. I guess what I was thinking is, are the 7s being who they are just naturally and doing whatever they do, versus the 9 waiting for him to ask her, does he know how to do it? Or she know how to do something. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so I even find this with myself. I'll take men out of the equation. I'll say to myself, when I have somebody and I'm like, oh, I'm a little bit more vulnerable with him because I'm like, okay, I ain't afraid to lose him like that. You know what I'm saying? But if I got this, I'm like, I'm a tiptoe. I'm like, I'm not going to give him all my problems because I don't want him to run away. You feel what I'm saying? But you should not be that way. You need to give them the same treatment you give that person. You need to give that person, because you're never going to know if he can handle it or if she can handle it if you never give them an opportunity, because you'll be amazed that 9 might really like you and like, hey, I didn't know this was a necessity. Because guess what? People, you're not the first relationship that people have been in. And another person may require something totally different than you required. Mm-hmm. So you have to give them an opportunity. There are basic things like cooking, cleaning that men like, but when it comes to stuff of detail, like, oh, I need you to budget my money, or I need you to do this, nobody's going to know that if you don't tell them, right? So it's like the fine details. Like if you give people, if you like somebody and you give them an opportunity, you tell them, you have to tell them your needs. You have to express it. You cannot assume that they automatically know. And I find that's a lot of issues that a lot of people come across. They don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to tell people. And then it's like, you're basically just not open. And you think like, this person is not compatible with me. And you may be, you're just not having the right conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think women suffer from that more so than men.
Oh, for sure. Mm-hmm. You may be right.
I think that's our issue. I think a lot of times men are very direct about what they want, what they want from their partner. I think a lot of times women get caught up in wanting to be the person that the partner wants, while at the same time not expressing what they want or what they need as well. And then we get upset at them for not meeting our needs, when it's truly on us to express what those needs are.
I have a couple of thoughts on this. So when you were given the example of the brother that had the woman that's a 7 or a 9, mm-hmm. Typically speaking, people that aren't as attractive, they build other qualities to compensate. For sure. Right? Now, when you are really attractive, most people come to you regardless of how you are. Right? Mm-hmm. And so typically, sometimes what happens with brothers is not that we don't tell you what we want you to do. So many brothers before you didn't ask you to do anything. And so you think because you're attractive that you don't really have to put in the same amount of work, or you don't have the same kind of skills that the other women's develop with character.
Do you so my question is, does she think it or do you think it? Because you said
Or,
she thinks it, but is it that she thinks it or is that you think it?
but I'm not exactly sure who's actually thinking it the most out of that scenario. But what I can say is this, is that like oftentimes, who you are consistently, that's the stuff that's going to show. There's a reason why the woman at a set that was a 7 showed certain qualities versus the woman that was a 9, she showed these qualities. Now, I think also a level of it is that sometimes in dating, we see certain things that we would like and we think it's possible to fix, but most of the time, if we feel like we got to ask for it, we don't really want it. Like there used to be this age old thing where women be like, I don't want you to ask me, do I want to do the dishes? I want you to always know to just do the dishes because you see that the dishes are dirty. So I see that happen a lot of times with women. They be like, I want you to just know, I need you to observe and da da da. So instead of just telling them, hey, can you just do the dishes more often? No, what she will do is get upset. He ain't washed those dishes. And so I actually kind of disagree a little bit because like women tell men what they want all the time. And a lot of brothers have been conditioned to just cater to her needs, which causes a lot of issues in a relationship. And then when the brother actually spoke out and said, hey, I actually don't like this, he got such a negative response from that woman. So now he bottles it up and he just continues to go on through his day and he gonna get what he want on the back end. And I think that too often when it comes to interactions with men and women, like women are a lot more vocal when they feel pain than when men feel pain. We're more inclined to suffer through a relationship for years upon years. That woman feels 5 minutes of pain. Hey, listen, what's up? Why aren't you doing the things that I need you? I need you to be great here. He needs you to be great, but he's more inclined to suffer through and just keep it going on about his business. So I just think it's just weird to me personally.
So I I wish men would stop doing that. Like we've normalized that as if that's okay and that's right. Because here's, I think, where Shan is going with this. If men were upfront about those things off rip and didn't have to wait until that woman was used to that kind of behavior, there wouldn't be such an abrasive reaction to things. If men were more intolerable from the very beginning and said, listen, if you don't meet these standards, kick rocks, you wouldn't have to then worry about what that reaction looks like about putting your foot down and then having to eat more like BS and bottle those feelings until you explode, right? I think it creates space for a really unhealthy dynamic. But here's the other side to that, right? The one thing that I do know about women is if she likes that man, no matter what any other man has expected of her, if that man says, hey, I need you to jump this high every time I say jump, you know what she's going to do? She's going to jump that high. But if you can't provide that directive, she's just going to assume that your standards are like every other dude's. And I don't think that's a fair way to lay foundation for a relationship. I get that like people feel this thing where, you know, people should just intuitively know each other. It takes work to get there. And I think in the generation that we live in, we like to bypass the work part and just get to the results part without actually laying the groundwork to get there. You get the whole knowing somebody instinctively from telling people, hey, I need you to do the dishes. Hey, I need you to not pop off whenever I'm giving you some criticism. Hey, I need you to like help with the kids more. Hey, I need you to like look put together when I get home from work. Whatever it is that you need in a relationship, if you're not vocalizing that, you never give the opportunity to the other person to get to know you to a point where like 2, 5, 10 years down the line where y'all just move in like this synchronicity, right? You don't get that. That whole, like I've heard so many men say, you know, when I come home from work, I just need a minute to myself. If you haven't laid the groundwork for that, and have told her that in a way that she understands it, not I told her the way that I talk to other men, you'll give her that opportunity to provide that for you consistently, right? And so I think sometimes, like, when we play those kind of mental manipulations or like those mind games of like, the person who cares least wins the most, like when we do that, we really rob ourselves of like having the genuine connections that like we all aspire to have.